Good morning, everybody. My name is Jacob Stone, and I'm presenting to you all today about acceptable use policies. So acceptable use policies are policies that every county has, including our own, and today I'll be explaining what exactly an AUP is, how is it relevant to you all, and how you can not only make sure that students and parents are following the AUP, but also how to make sure you are as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, what is an AUP? You can't really talk about something if you don't really understand what it is. So an AUP is a document stipulating constraints and practices that a user must agree to for access to a corporate network, the internet, or other resources. In other words, it's essentially a legal document that you agree to follow in order to use technology like computers, software, programs, pretty much everything that we use on a daily basis here in school. Most businesses and organizations have some sort of AUP policy in some form. And it allows organizations to define what acceptable and unacceptable behavior is for the work environment. So our school in general follows the county AUP, and I'll get into that here shortly. But before that, why should schools have an AUP? Why is it such a big deal to have this policy? So, to meet the demands of a changing society, sound AUPs are needed to prepare schools to adequately address the issues involved with students' use of new technology. In other words, as our society changes and as we become more and more reliant to technology, there is a need to not only know how to properly use technology, but what are the proper criteria for using it in general. And we need to make sure that our schools are well aware of it. In the past, schools have just kind of relied on how to use technology. But as things have kind of progressed as of late, the policy reflects the need for students to understand that there is a morally good, positive way of using technology in our society. So the AUP kind of helps with that. So it clearly portrays the school system's purpose and intent with the policy. It's clarifying acceptable and unacceptable behavior. It also helps to protect students and staff from threats and scams. And it's promoting practices and traits of a good digital citizen. And that tends to be the bigger portion of this, especially when you're looking at students and our priority to make sure that they are prepared for the future. So an overview of the MCPS's acceptable use policy. First off, where do you find it? So in general, I found it very difficult to actually find it on MCPS's website. There was no clear way to find it, and even when I went to the other regulations, it actually wasn't there. So I found that the quickest way to find it is to go to mcps.org, go to the search bar and type in acceptable use policy, and then the first link, or one of the first links, should be called Regulation IGT-RA. And this document is MCPS's AUP. So the policy applies to both staff and students, as highlighted in key parts of the document. So this covers both working staff as well as all of our students. So MCPS's AUP is actually what our school uses as our AUP. So whenever we address the AUP, not only are we addressing what the county wants, this is also what our school has adopted as well. So Regulation IGT-RA has 5 different sections. First, you have the purpose, or objectives of the document and what it wants to achieve, the background, why the document is needed, definitions, vocabulary that is used in the policy, procedures, which is kind of the more important part, and it addresses all the proper ways for both students and staff to use county technology. And then finally, non-compliance. And this is also important to understand because this section lays out the consequences for failing to follow procedures or violating the policy. So some key procedures. There are many different procedures, but I pulled out the most important ones and kind of summarized them. So users responsible for their accounts, including passwords and electronic signatures. So everybody has a school account they use. They are responsible for the activity on there and for protecting it. Physical equipment such as computers should be watched and kept in secure locations. Accounts should be locked or logged out when not using them. Users are also required to follow rules of all equipment and processes and should not conduct risky behavior. Keyword here being conduct risky behavior, because that is what will get you in trouble. Students and staff should be educated on the use of technology and proper online behavior, part of what we're doing now. And then finally, report inappropriate content that is not filtered. If you do not follow these procedures, there are consequences in the non-compliance that specify both for students and staff. For students, you get the telephone call to parents, loss of privileges, restitution, suspension or expulsion, and criminal prosecution. For staff, this could mean a conference, warning, letter of reprimand, loss of privileges, suspension without pay, demotion, dismissal, and criminal prosecution. Keep in mind, the county and the school does not need to go through each step in order to get to more serious offenses. The non-compliance itself can determine which step they follow through with. So keep that in mind. So, in order to make sure that we do not find ourselves not in non-compliance, ways for staff and students to know about the AUP. So some suggestions that we could start doing to help spread the word. We can send out weekly emails with facts and tips to both staff, students, and parents. We can do what we're doing now and do a professional development session. Or with students, we could actually take time to do specific lessons on proper tech uses. We could even promote tech nights, or you do PTSA events with administration to meet with parents about the policy so that parents are familiar with this. We can even hang information around the school on posters and in classrooms. And then and probably the most beneficial and easiest way to make sure this happens is to incorporate practices into lessons and classroom activities. So, how can we make sure students follow the policy? So we can go over the AUP agreement with students before they sign it. Every student is expected to sign it or accept it. So going over that will help them. We can also incorporate digital citizen ethics and practices into our lessons and activities. The whole point of the AUP is to instill these digital citizen practices into our students and teach them how to be good digital citizens. So that would help achieve the purpose of the AUP. We can also use software that helps block or prevent access to inappropriate and distracting websites. So we could use the county filter, which does that automatically. We can even do things like GoGuardian. And then we can go to media and tech specialists for advice and ways to help students. They're our main go-to for this type of stuff, so they would have the most knowledge. So leaning on them would kind of be a good way of doing that. And then how can you specifically follow the policy? So some key points: be familiar with the AUP's procedures. Might even help to go and read it. Check in with our tech specialist and staff development teacher. Again, they're the most knowledgeable about this policy, so they would know ways of improving it or following it. You can review different resources that the county offers on its website, as well as county tech specialists, and then we can put practices into action. Because what is good for the students is also good for teachers too. So the different practices that we spread to them, we can practice ourselves. So that is essentially the presentation. I've been able to pull information from different resources to give you guys these ideas. So hopefully this helps. If you need any assistance, please let me know. But this is our AUP policy. Thank you again for listening, and I wish you guys a wonderful day.